guys, happy Monday. I think all of my sound is on. mhm. So Druid, my darling, I hope you're getting some rest. I'm so glad to see you back. Robin, hi. I'm glad you like the music. I feel like I found one that's like a keeper. Some nice, like, easygoing sort of reggae, ska. That last one sounded kind of like ska. So, good music. Yeah, I'm looking around. I don't have one of my lights on. That's why it's so dark. I was like, I missed something today. Let there be light. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference in my video, but it's a big difference to me. So, I hope you guys had a good weekend. I sewed a lot and did tons of laundry. I'm so behind on my laundry. I was thank you, Joanne. I think I sort of pooped out when I got back from my Lincoln, Iowa, or Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota trip, and said to catch up on the laundry. And so in 2 days I leave on a pretty hellacious group of travel. I have to go to North Carolina and then do a quick turnaround to fly to California. So, and it sounds like there's a helicopter flying right over my house. So, if they come running in, you guys can tell them. They came and whisked her off in a helicopter. That's all we know. I'm kidding. We have lots of robberies in our area, unfortunately, and there's a bank just down the street. It gets robbed once a year, so it's not funny, but so I had a quick quilts in the news thing to tell you about. It's pretty much all that I really focused on media-wise this weekend. So this is from CPR, which I think is Colorado Public Radio. Yes. And it is about a 9-quilt exhibit created in 1995 by Japanese women, which was revived this month at the Quilt Museum in Golden, Colorado. So let me pull up. There's not really super great pictures, but let me pull up. Typing sideways is hard. Okay, so let me switch over here. The other screen. And so this shows one of the women, Patty Souter, standing beside one of the 9 quilts. She is not the maker of this, it looks like. But this is at the Rocky Mount Quilt Museum. I've never been there, but I did have the honor of editing a video that they put together for AQSG for our winter virtual seminar. So I got to see sort of the inside of Rocky Mount. And I think, I'm not positive, but I suspect they are a smaller quilt museum. I don't know how big their collection is, if they have one. I know, for instance, the Virginia Quilt Museum, they're a smaller museum. They have smaller collection. Same thing with the New England Quilt Museum. The Iowa Quilt Museum is really more of a gallery space because they don't maintain a collection. So all of the quilt museums across the U.S. kind of do different things. So why don't we read this article, because I think I didn't get a chance to read it in full, and I think it might be interesting for us. So this opens today, right? Yeah, 4/21. Happy Easter, by the way, if you celebrate. I pretty much spent Easter by myself because my husband was away and my son was watching some weekend wrestling thing. So happy Easter. I had pizza. So anyway, this says, again, Colorado Public Radio says, inside what initially seems like a well-appointed quilt shop with bolts of fabrics and quilt making equipment are a few rooms devoted to the museum quality display of quilts. It's there that on April 21st, a 9-quilt exhibit created 30 years ago will go on display. So this exhibit is the 30th anniversary of this 1995 project that was done by the Japanese American women, said Patty Souter, a board member of the Japanese American Resource Center of Colorado. Isn't that the museum that Susanna went to? You know, it might have been. Gosh, when she was back in the States. Oh, golly, I cannot remember. That's been like a couple years ago. But yeah, she was back in the States, and I know that she went to a number of places. So it might have been that one, because I know she's from the Midwest, and I can't remember if it's Minnesota, Wisconsin. I can't remember, but yeah, I think you're right, Robin. So the exhibit is entitled The Colorado Japanese American Women's Quilt Project. It consists of 9 quilts, each with 8 panels that tell personal stories. The quilts they made were initially shown at the Arvada Center for the Arts and Humanities in 1995 and have been in storage ever since. So glad they're coming out, because, come on, we got to show the quilts more often than every, 30 years? Each quilt was created as a way to memorialize and record memories of the evacuations, incarcerations, and restrictions surrounding World War II, according to the booklet that accompanies the exhibit, which opens on Monday and will have a reception next Friday, so I'm assuming it's this Friday. Well cared for since 1995. Well, I'm glad they were well cared for, but again, they were in storage. So, well cared for, the 9 quilts are all rectangular, about 2 feet by 3 feet in size, and contain 8 panels, each about 7 inches square. Each created by a different person. Over 80 of the quilters were women and 1 man. The quilters are from Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming. What makes the quilts different from other decorative quilts with starbursts or other designs, down here, is that each panel in the quilt tells a story. Each square on the sampler, Souter showed, had a crest that was used to identify the family. You can see these beautiful crests. One family crest is stitched onto dark blue fabric into what looks like blue origami cranes with Japanese stitching. So that's this one up here. It's called sashiko. It means little stabs in Japanese. Souter said of the technique, in which each stitch is placed in an identical way to the other, with a short length of thread. Another panel has 2 very small photos that were silk screened onto the fabric, and another is of lavender flowers on a peach-toned background. So this is the one, I think, the flowers on the peach tone, and then this is the one with the pictures. They encouraged all of the quilters to tell their family stories, or they just made it a very, let's see, can I zoom in here? No, they don't have, oh, wait. No, they don't have any way to, yeah, that's just a search. Yeah, that was the only one that they show in here. Let's see. They encouraged all the quilters to tell their family stories, or if they just made it a very kind of diverse theme at storytelling, said Billy King, another JARCC board member. Each of the blocks tells a story about their families or a story about an experience, memory that they had, experience of their businesses that they started when they came to Colorado. Some are mementos of gratitude to the older generation, just thanking them for their perseverance through camp and all that kind of stuff. The organizers of the exhibit aren't the only ones focusing on it. Governor Jared Polis also weighed in with a letter that said, "Your accomplishment of having 9 storytelling quilts showcasing family experiences of 84 women and 1 gentleman from Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming is incredibly admirable, along with JARCC's mission to preserve, celebrate, and share the Japanese and Japanese American experience in Colorado." And the exhibit is up until the middle of July. So if you're in that area and can stop by, go see that. I would love to hear about it. And just this one quilt that they're showing here, it looks like it has some really cool, like sort of a braided cable quilting on it. And, it obviously other types of needlework here. We've got sashiko. It looks like probably a good deal of applique. So these are probably very cool. And if you're not in the U.S. or don't know U.S. history very well, what they're referring to in the article, which I don't think was very clear, is that during World War II, a terrible blight on our country, among other things, was that officials rounded up Japanese Americans and put them in camps. They were not concentration camps. They were not refugee camps. They were just like internment camps, kind of like jail for families, whole families. And they were kept in these internment camps because they were considered national threats. Because during World War II, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and the U.S. government, I think, thought these people here could be in cahoots, I guess, is what they're thinking. And so they put whole families into these internment camps. And there's a lot of interesting artwork, needlework that came out of this camps that women produced, telling the stories just like this. So I think they're important documents. I'm always saying quilts are documents, and that is what these are, I think. Although it seems like they have multiple different meanings in these blocks, it sounds like they were ultimately made for this purpose of maintaining and keeping this history. So it's unfortunate that the quilts are created because of that history, but it's important that they were created because of that history, because it tells the story, and we can look back on that terrible period and have this beautiful thing that reminds us. Hey, Tish. So it happened in Canada as well. Yeah, I think that the shame of the U.S. Sometime was replicated in Canada in different and similar ways. So yeah, North America, boo hiss sometimes, right? You know what? If the government could just get out of the way of the citizens, for the people and by the people. All right, I'm not gonna get political. Don't worry, guys. All right. So, like I said, I pulled out some Quilters Newsletter magazines. I have not had a chance to look at my early 70s, mid 70s magazines that I was able to acquire recently from a dear friend of a friend. And she is now my dear friend. I'm actually doing a little bit of research for her. So she had some, maybe Dunton things she wanted me to look for. So I'm going to do that this afternoon. So real quick, just to show you. So this is 75. This is a year later in 76. So this, I think, is the time period where you go from these sort of, this is all printed in black and white and green. Looks like they were able to get the green into this one. Whereas a year later, we've got color and like full color. Full color. So this was, I think, a big deal. And I have not looked. I think I have complete. I think I have a complete group. I think I might be missing one 1975 issue, but I have this complete group. So I need to go back and look. When did the switch happen? It clearly happened between April 75 and April 76. I just need to look and figure it out when it happened. So anyway, I thought we would take a look at the April 75 because this is 50 years ago, you guys. 50 years ago! I was 2 years old. Actually, not quite 2 yet. I'm sure you guys are going, shut up, Cake. All right. Let me move some things around here. And hopefully my camera has stayed on. Yes! Okay. Tried to get, I've been trying to work with my camera. I think I need to, this overhead camera, I think I need to move it. So. Druid says it seems more like for the big dogs to decide what happens to all little dogs. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's not get political, but yes, indeed. I feel you. I think we're all in the same agreement here. All right. Let us look at this magazine. Okay. Like I said, Quilters Newsletter Magazine, 1975, issue 66, 75 cents. Now, here's something interesting because I also grabbed the April 76. Same price. 75 cents in 75 and 75 cents in 76, yet they went to color. So that's interesting. Magazines were in their heyday at this point. So, what do we have here? So, this is back in the heyday. This was Lehman Publications. Let's see, I'm trying to remember if it was 68 or 69 that the magazine started. So we're less than 10 years in. And this is certainly the heyday. The lawn guys are here. Hopefully that is not noisy to you guys, but they'll be right under my window any minute now. Usually, last year they came on Tuesdays. How exciting that they've switched to Monday. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is an advertisement. Look at the tiny I don't know, the camera's not going to focus in on it, but the tiny words there right above kits, it says advertisement, just so that you know. So these are fun. This is, let's see, patchwork and applique pillow cover kits. 14-inch round Dresden plate, 14-inch square Martha Washington star, 12-inch square turkey tracks, $7 each. State predominant colors, desired in dark, bright, or pastel tones. These are interesting because I think I have one of these kits. Over the, past 5-6 years, I've been picking up interesting craft kits as I get a chance, mostly from the 60s, 70s, a few things from the 80s. I feel like the 60s and 70s were like the heyday of craft kits. So I'm always interested when I see these and I'm like, ooh, an advertisement for one that I have. All right. Look at here. Stearns and Foster, 2nd annual Mountain Mist Friendship Quilt Contest. So this is the Mountain Mist Bicentennial Friendship Quilt, 1974. So they were way ahead of the game. It is not a super picture of it, because it's in black and white. But let's see what they say. Last year, over 100 women from the original 13 states. So I wonder if they were limited to the 13 states or if they just picked the 100 women of those 13 states. From the original 13 states, created beautiful quilting squares depicting important historical events in their states. It was an overwhelming response to our Mountain Mist Bicentennial Quilt Contest. In fact, it was so successful we decided to hold a second quilt contest, only on a larger scale. The 1975 Mountain Mist Quilt Contest invites entries from every state in the Union. Well, I'm going to have to go back and look at this, see if I can find info about this 1974 one. All you have to do is design and make a pre-shrunk 10 by 10, 100% white cotton quilting square depicting your state flower. Materials used should be washable, such as embroidery floss, thread, coordinating fabrics, etc. Do not quilt the square. Then enter the winning squares, one from each state. The winning squares, one from each state, will be sewn together into our state flower friendship quilt, which will be seen by millions of people as it's displayed across the country. In addition, each winner will receive $25. If your square isn't chosen for our friendship quilt, it will be returned. Judging will be done by the editors of Quilters Newsletter. All entries must be postmarked no later than July 1st, 1975. So this was a quick turnaround. This is April 75. They're advertising this. I guess it's a good chance this advertisement happened throughout the whole thing. You know what? I wonder. Turn that this way. No, that's not going to work. I'm trying to think of a better way to get, The magazine fits just fine like this. Why aren't magazines long like that? I'm sure would help when you try to look at them online. Okay. Let's see. Old-time quilting. Old-time quilting. So this is called The Bridal Stairway. A popular pattern during the 30s. Now, I'm not familiar with this one. This seems to me to be like Streak of Lightning. It looks like, it's kind of hard to see, but it looks like you're putting these blocks sort of like stair-steppy, and then you're filling in the gaps with these blocks. So, I don't know, it's very difficult to see this. But basically these are staggered rectangles, and then the triangles are filling in the space. So, let's see. It looks like you could put multiples together to get this secondary zigzag in the center, or you can just do them as singles. Huh. And then you've got this orange blossom wreath quilting design. Designed by Mary Lehman, especially for this bridal quilt. So Mary Lehman, I'm not sure. Do you guys know? Was she Bonnie Lehman's sister, daughter, mother? I don't know. She would have obviously been related to the Lehmans. Let's see. Turn quilting design clockwise to match point A with point B. So point A, point B. Okay, so this like would make like a round thing, I guess. Turn it, and it would make like a wreath. And I'm guessing that goes in that center. Interesting. Have you guys ever seen this one before? All right. This one, tic-tac-toe. And look at this. They're calling it modern quilting. So this one's fun because it's a very serious curve situation going on here. But you know what? This, I believe, it's called like something like Crossroads or something like that. I have seen this before on like a 1930s quilt. I actually I did some research for somebody that had a block similar to this in one of their quilts, and they weren't sure, and I researched it, and it is like one of the newspaper quilts, I think. Let's see. I don't see any reference to it. Looks like the signal at the end of the TV broadcasting day. Well, back then it did. All right. Okay, these aren't... Okay, so this is a Jean Ray Laurie spread. So this is probably from her lace book. Let's see. Yes, New Uses for Old Laces. And I know this from the book, and I think these are doll quilts or baby quilt. And what she did was she just basic piecing of squares, and then I think she tacked down the doilies, probably blocked them first so they'd lay flat, and then she put this cotton organdy over it, which is sheer, and then she quilted over that. And I think this is something that you see people do similar things like this today, but I would say Jean Ray Laurie was the first. So I love the title of the book, New Uses for Old Laces. It also lists her other books here. So she designed for Family Circle magazine, of course, and other home magazines. She wrote Quilts and Coverlets, which is a very good book, A Contemporary Approach, in 1970. Then she was the author of Applique Stitchery, Doll Making, Wood Applique. That's another one I have. It's interesting. If you think about what her quilts looked like, especially Tom's quilt, the one that was very simple, childlike, shapes and things that made little pictures. Her wood applique is very similar. So it'd be like an apple, and then, like cut in half, and then you'd have like the inside of the apple, and then the seeds would all be different pieces of wood. And creative body coverings. That was a clothing one. So here she shows, I mean, these are literally right out of the book. I have the book. So this is utilizing pieces of lace as applique to make flowers. And then you can see the quilting on the back of the quilt. And this one is a house made out of different pieces of lace and fabric. Very cute. And then here's an angel. And then she's used lace for its halo, and looks like there's maybe some lace on the gown too. I can't tell. Doesn't seem to be any lace on the wings, but she's done some embroidery on the wings, and then the gown looks like it's got lots of lace. So very cute. What do we have next? Ooh, counter change. This is interesting. Here is a term I have not heard. Counter changing. So counter changing patterns. What do you think this is about, you guys? Any guesses? So counter changing is a design technique that goes back into antiquity. It is a simple technique that has been used and developed by unknown masters of ornamental art for centuries. So it is no surprise that many quilt patterns have devised by employing this method. That was odd. Counter change patterns are made by cutting an identical shape from a black and white square or any two contrasting colors, then switching the black cutout to the white square and the white cutout to the black square. There is one quilt name which is an especially good example of this give and take procedure because the name describes the method, robbing Peter to pay Paul. This name has been given to all the counter change designs shown in Figure 1. So robbing Peter to pay Paul is also called counter changing. You learned something today, at least I did. Counter change designs make very graphic quilts, I would agree. As you look at them, you can see movement and pattern within pattern. One such quilt design is shown in Sketch A, which is this. This design has two names, perhaps more. If Figure 2 is considered, let's see, Figure 2 is this. So if Figure 2 is considered the block unit in this quilt, it is called the Block Island Puzzle. Figure 3 shows a block unit that is called Crossed Canoes. I've seen that one before. Both these block units can be seen in this design. Ah, yes, you can see how when you put together the block island, then you end up with this. You can see the set and puzzle there. That's very cool. So you can almost like not entirely be sure. And then you've also got this other secondary design there. I love that. I love that when quilt patterns do that. It's the little things, you guys, you know. Okay, so cross canoes. Both of these block units can be seen in this design. Actually, there are two more simple basic blocks in this quilt, and that's, this is Figure 4, so this is what's creating it, obviously, which are alternated vertically and horizontally or counterchanged. You can make this quilt with pattern pieces A, B, and C below. Another effective counterchange design is shown in Sketch B, which must be this other page. This pattern called Light and Shadows appeared in Godey's Ladies Book in 1859. It can be made from pattern pieces D and E on the next page. So, So this is Light and Shadows. This is interesting because you've got kind of, let's see how these are coming together. Okay. So it makes this, like the darks make this Maltese cross-like pattern, and then you have the big white one in the middle. Interesting. Okay. All right. Oh, let's see. What's new in quilting? I think what this is continued, but let's see. Want to call your attention to the February issues of both Family Circle and Ladies Home Journal. A beautiful quilt by Jean Ray Laurie is pictured on page 73 of Family Circle. The journal announces a contest for original stitchery keyed to the bicentennial. First prize is $500. Entries must be mailed by April 15th. There's another bicentennial mention and a bicentennial quilt that I'm going to have to follow up on. So let's do a little mark of that. So many bicentennial quilts. Okay. What have we here? Mini quilt patterns. Look at this. Now, this is something that is certainly modern. We see a lot of this, putting quilted things on pockets, edgings. I like this one. That's very cool, that Western style. You know, the pillow edgings and stuff, that's quite old. Saw so many of those in the 30s and 40s, I guess. But look at these tiny pieces. So here we have, let's see, it's the double wedding ring and a star. Grandmother's flower garden, but then look, it's got these little oval shapes that you could put outside of the flower. Flowers in a vase. Oh, it's interesting how you reuse the R for the base. Your Dresden plate, the basket, and a fan. Those are very cute. Of course, you could take any pattern and scale it down today. That's the beautiful thing. I have something up on my desk called a scanner. I can put it on there and I can scan these and I can make them as big or small as I want. My gosh, how far we've come, right? So what do we have here? Cynthia Star Quilt. Okay, so this is the quilt on the cover. Cynthia Star Quilt. And this is a masterpiece. So you've got this big Star of Bethlehem, Lone Star here in the middle, and then you have smaller ones in the empty quadrants, halvesies in those triangular areas, and then you've got 4 more and then another 4 in the corners. So this thing is just lousy with stars. So imagine this big one, and then you have this second size, and then you have this third size. And it looks like these corner ones, they may or may not be the same size as this. It's hard to tell, you know, when you've got kind of differing values. This I feel like looks smaller, right? This corner one here, but I bet it's the same size. So that quilt is called Cynthia Star. Let's read about it. So this is a star quilt made for Cynthia DeLong Blodgett by her mother in 1935. The story of this quilt unfolds below in a letter to the editor of Quilters Newsletter from Dorothy M. Moore, a friend of Mrs. Blodgett's. Blodgett, wow. And in a note written to Julia DeLong when she gave the quilt to her daughter. The original work order from the Mary A. McIlwain quilt shop. Mary McIlwain's very famous early days quilt designer, and she had a shop. Not many people had, these studios and shops at the time, so she was just one of a handful of women. Along with the personalized note from Mary McIlwain, also reprinted in their entirety. So here is the receipt or the work order. Here is the note from Mary McIlwain. I am familiar with her handwriting because she corresponded with Dr. Dunton. So I've seen it before. Mrs. DeLong goes on to list the number of pieces in the quilt. If you remember when we read some snippets from this book, which is Quilting News of Yesteryear, 1,000 Pieces and Counting by Sue Reich, you may remember that back in the 19th century, they loved to count the number of pieces in their quilts. And it was like a contest, right? So to me, like early 20th century, 1930s, we're still doing that. We're still looking at the number of pieces in the quilt as being important. You just don't see that now. I mean, unless you've got something that's super, super intricate, like, I don't know, a bed size, like a king size quilt made out of 1/2-inch hexagons. Like, yeah, somebody would mention that. Or our friend Amy Pabst and her itty bitty micro piecing. Her goals for herself are around the number of pieces. But those are exceptions. Like, for the most part, people don't, they might say to themselves, like, I have 180 more of these units to make, but it's not necessarily like this badge of courage so much anymore. So, okay. The McElwain Quilt Shop was located in Walworth, Wisconsin in the 1930s and 40s and was well known during that time for its quilt patterns, kits, and fine hand quilting service. A catalog written by Mrs. McElwain in 1936 was called The Romance of the Village Quilts. The Village Quilts. And has become a collector's item. Okay, so 1975, that catalog was a collector's item. I have seen one of the catalogs. I don't know if it was something that she issued yearly or what, but there is at least one, if not more. I can literally picture it in Dr. Dutton's collection. So I have seen it. I've touched it with my hands. I may have pictures from it. I'll have to look. So it's a collector's item. The shop is no longer in business, and the catalog is not available for purchase. I think she went out of business in the 40s. So possibly the war years were probably difficult for her. Here's a letter from Mrs. Moore. About 2 years ago, you mentioned the possibility of having an article on the Mary McElwain Quilt Shop in Quilters Newsletter. Last June, our Alter Society put on a quilt show, and one of the 95 quilts we displayed had been quilted at the shop in 1941. The owner, Cynthia Blodgett, not only brought this beautiful quilt to our show, but also brought the original work order receipt and explanatory notes which she had received with the quilt from her mother. So, let's see. It seems to me that this was all the quilting only. So it seems to me that Cynthia Blodgett's mother did indeed piece the quilt, which, let's look at it again. It's a tour de force. And perhaps she was a person who loved piecing and not quilting. There's lots of people like that. I love appliquing and also not quilting. So it was Mary McElwain's shop then that did the quilting for her. And lots of people do that today. There's no shame in liking one part of the process and not another, Certainly if you have the ability to pay somebody else, it's a huge load off, not to have to quilt it as well. So, Cynthia Blodgett brought the quilt for the show and the original work order and receipt and explanatory notes. I made the enclosed copies, which you're welcome to use. The colors are still bright: pinks, lavender, and prints. What a shame that it got printed in green, because that is entirely not the color it is. I bet we could find it online somewhere. The quilting is gorgeous in half-inch diamonds, pineapples, and feathers, all done in fine, even stitches. Well, of course, Mary McElwain couldn't possibly have employed people that quilted badly, or she wouldn't have been in business long. Following is a note from Julia DeLong for her daughter, Cynthia. This was begun in June 1925, before Cynthia was 3 weeks old. Oh, so Cynthia would have been born the same year as my grandmother. I planned the star to be on the top of the bed. The pieces were cut from materials I had on hand, with the exception of some of the pink. So it is truly a piece quilt. And I guess she means sort of scrappy. Originally, I planned to have just the one star put together with orchid, but later ripped it up and put it together with white. In the meantime, so she made this thing once and ripped it out. Oh, you gotta love it. In the meantime, having made the smaller stars for the corners and half stars for the sides and ends, I got the original idea from a star quilt given me by my mother and made by her old aunt when she was 77 years old. That's another thing I've noticed about quilting, and I think probably why, even to this day, people have this, quilting as a grandmother's activity, because so many people talk about how old a woman was when she made a particular quilt. Women even, you guys have seen old quilts. You've seen the quilts where, everything from a child of 6 to a woman of 78 or 80 years old who proudly, stitches that onto her quilt. So So it's kind of no wonder people were like, yeah, old ladies make quilts, because old ladies did make quilts. And they made a big deal about old ladies making quilts. But they weren't the only ones who made quilts. Okay. I reduced the size of the pattern so that the big star would be on the top of the bed. I changed some of the diamonds in the big star, inserting instead those made from a flowered print of a little coat and hat I had made for Cynthia. I finished the quilt July 27th, 1935, so it took her 10 years. 10 years and 1 month, apparently. Put the name on the top, February 14th, 1941. Okay, so then it was another 6 years before she put a name on it. Made the lining and sent the quilt to Walworth, Wisconsin for quilting. So this was a multi-year, a decade endeavor. So interesting. All right, now let's look at this price here. So we've got star, color gorgeous. I love that. I think that's what this says anyway. Gorgea. Yeah, I think she's trying to say gorgeous there. Needle marking designed for quilting. I can't tell if this is $1.50. I think that's $7.50, maybe. 2-star cotton bat, $1. Binding, $1.50 for single. Quilting labor, full sized, $21 to $35, and they charged her $25. Spools of styles waxed quilting thread at 15 cents each was $1.80. So same color of your eyes. You guys can use that. You're welcome. Gosh, what color are your eyes? Gorgeous. I'm going to use that too. Let's see. Material to bind, 50 cents. So that was under extra work. And for a grand total of, I guess this is $31.30. Can you imagine? Can you buy a quilt for $31.30 at, say, Walmart or the thrift store? Yes, you can. It's probably a quilt you don't want, though. Okay, so what does Mary McElwain say? So your lovely star is done, and please let us know if you are home. It is so beautiful in every way. It is a temptation to keep. Your harmony and stitches so perfect. I worked hard to do mine as well and merit your approval. The something and okay. Let's see. The name Anoka is so pretty. Okay, so I think this is where she's from. Yeah, Anoka, Minnesota. Maybe? Anoka, Minnesota. So the name Anoka is so pretty. Is it... I have no... Oh, Indian. Is it Indian? Thank you, sincerely, Mary A. McElwain. Terrible handwriting, Mary McElwain. But that's okay. Mine's terrible, too. So that is interesting. And then again, it's got 1,458 pieces. Gosh, you'd think there would be more with all those stars. But look at this. Unique quilt book, completely original designs by Evelyn Brown. Full-sized pattern pieces, $4 plus 50 cents. Look, it's very clearly like hand lettered. I love that. People were making things like that. Just don't make as many handmade zines and such these days. Let's look at some Quilters queries. Quilters queries answered by Lou Ditto. Question. I was wondering if any of the ladies would have any ideas on making bedspreads out of the heavy, worn blue denim jeans. How are they sewn together and so forth? In issue 65, Jane Gerston's quilts are described in the What's New and News column. She washes, irons, and cuts the jeans apart, then sews them back together in a crisscross pattern. A crisscross pattern. That doesn't explain much to me. She uses the waistbands for the border and then appliques hundreds of tiny stars on the top. In Quilters Newsletter number 41, Teresa Barkley of Wilmington, Delaware, is introduced in The Meetin' Place, along with a photo of a denim quilt she made. Her quilt was made from squares of faded blue jeans, decorated and then edged with crochet. I'm sure that was beautiful. Lots of people are making cool denim quilts these days too. I mean, clearly 50 years ago, this is nothing new. And I hate to be this way, but I look at the modern quilt movement and a lot of newer quilters, and particularly newer quilters who are not as, up to date on their history and maybe have never been exposed to things like Quilters Newsletter Magazine. They'll see things like denim quilts and they'll be like, oh, look at these wonderful artists. They're upcycling old denim, and what a great new thing to do. Well, it's not new at all. They were doing this 50 years ago. They were doing this 100 years ago. So anyway, I'll step off my soapbox. It's just, I really wish people would do some research before they call something new and innovative. Do you know where I can buy pencils for marking quilts? Ooh, pencils. We stock a white disappearing chalk for marking patterns and quilting designs on colored fabric. The marking on the fabric will disappear with steam pressing or automatically after 168 hours. 168 hours. How long is that? I can't do math in my head. Hold on a minute. Let me do this math. 168 hours. Did I do something wrong? Let me try that again. 168 divided by 24. 7 days. So it's 1 week. I should have known that. I'm curious to know, however, did they time it? I have to say, I do like chalk marking, and even if it doesn't disappear in a week, because you can brush chalk marks off, it shows up really well. And I have only found one good chalk marking pen that I love. It's a Bohin, and they're expensive as heck. And if you're marking using a sandboard, which creates the best, clearest lines, and that's when it's just a piece of board covered with a sandpaper, and you put your fabric down, typically, right side down, and then you trace around the back of it, on the back of it to mark, pieces or whatever. And the sand keeps the fabric from shifting, which is great, except the roughness causes the chalk to wear down really fast. So I haven't found something that works better. With light colored fabrics, mechanical pencils are perfect. Even on the front side, if you do little dots, it washes out, if it's something that you're going to wash. But yeah, I haven't found anything that's like super great and affordable. I did find chalk pastel pencils in white. That's been iffy, whether it washes out or not. So, all right. My neighbor has an 80-year-old log cabin top, and I have offered to quilt it for her. However, I am not sure what pattern to use. Would it be suitable to merely follow the seams? And the answer is, the log cabin pattern is usually outline quilted, as are most quilts made up of small pieces. More intricate quilting designs are used on large plain blocks, applique quilts, or on rather plain pieced patterns to make them more outstanding. I don't agree with that. Now, this is something that the modern quilters, I think, have done really well, is using all over patterning, bespoke quilting in different areas. If you've got a large expanse, they'll do one thing. If you've got like a small shape, they'll do something different. I think that is one thing that modern quilters, the modern quilting movement, and contemporary quilters too, have really leaned into long arming and the really unique things you can do with long arming. Okay, and the final question. I am making a double Irish chain in pink, white, and blue to use as a baby gift. Rather than using plain white cotton for the bottom, would it be possible to use a soft flannel print? And the answer is yes. Flannel baking, flannel backing makes a baby quilt very soft and warm. Be sure you get a flannel which is meant for children's sleepwear, as this fabric is treated with a flame retardant, which I believe is classified as a carcinogen in California. Okay. So this is the collector's scrapbook. I mean, look at this. It's a literal scrapbook. How cute. Or 3-ring binder. How cute. So here we have Starburst. I was actually looking at, it was one of the Pioneer quilt books by, and I can't remember the name of it. It's by Mary Bycross Waters. Mary Bycross Waters. Looked just like this. So I'm wondering if that's maybe from her book. And then this, Kansas Troubles. So if you look at the basic unit of this, that little spiky thing, the singular version of it is Rocky Glen. And it's one of those patterns that depending on how you put it together, you get different looks. So this one they're calling Kansas Troubles, and it's kind of put together almost like a windmill. So it's got this sort of movement. You can also put it together so that the blocks are like kind of stacked on top of each other and they form like a sort of a diamond pattern. And that is Delectable Mountains, which is a pattern that Dr. Dunton was obsessed with. And Rocky Glen, he did a whole thing about the different ways that these Rocky Glen blocks could, how they're pieced differently and how just turning one thing makes them look different. Grandmother's Corner. This is always a favorite. Let's see, this one. Oh, this one looks like it could be interesting. We'll have to see. Let's come back to that. These are the mini quilt patterns again. Oh, look at this tiny little wreath. How cute. And the little tulip basket. This is just the simple patchwork for your cuffs and your pocket tops. All right, so we're almost at the end here. So these are quilts that have been made and sent in by viewers. This one's kind of cute. It's a terrible picture, but you can see it's a stork. Looks like it was some type of panel. I enlarged on graph. Oh, okay. So no, it's not a panel. I enlarged on graph paper a stork picture found on a paper plate. And she used graph paper, and we've talked about this before. Before the days of just taking something and doing a photocopy, enlargement, or using your computer or a scanner, which again today would be super easy. Just throw that paper plate on a scanner. Use photo editing software to break it up and make it as big as you want. Anyway, this poor woman did it with graph paper. So the stork is depicted delivering the baby in a hanging basket because my friend's hobby is making pottery baskets. Okay. Well, also it's kind of a trope that storks bring babies in baskets. So, and then there's the earth up here in the corner. See, the delivery tag is embroidered. Deliver Byron Graham to Ray and Nancy Jaquette, Laramie, Wyoming, August 19th, 1974. I traced the Western Hemisphere from an atlas onto pale green fabric and appliqued it onto the dark blue circle. An X marks the spot of the baby's birthplace. Oh, that's very cute. True, it still uses graph paper. You have Arrested Development. I love it. More power to you, my friend. If you have success with it and enjoy it, I bow down to you. I, from a young age, tried to use that graph paper enlargement technique and never could I get it to work out right. So this is, in issue 61, we introduced a new series, quilt pattern designed especially for Quilters Newsletter by Hazel Carter. I know Hazel. I go to a quilt study groups. One that she leads, or she used to lead. That is, I think it's pretty much been taken over by someone else, but you know, her name is still on the leadership. And she's come to some other quilt studies I've been to. She is one of the founders, or the founder of the Quilters Hall of Fame. So this pattern was developed by Hazel and Mary Lehman. Their different patterns appear each month until the series of 12 blocks is complete. So this is a quilt along, a block of the month. The first pattern, Daffodil, included directions for the basket and the applique, as well as general directions and yardage requirements. The second pattern, Pansies, explained how to set the quilt together. We will repeat the basket pattern each month for the benefit of new readers who may want to make just one block for a pillow top or a whole quilt from the single block pattern. So, okay. It appears that you cut these things out and then there's these embroidery lines. Huh. Okay. And then the basket's kind of cute. It's different than the baskets we usually see. Okay. What's on the back here? This is where we have all of the, well, cover up Annette's name. This is where we have all of the classified ads. But I won't go through these. All right. Let's take a look at Grandma's Corner by Theo Eason, because these are always something else. Let me switch to me because there's not much to look at. I'm sure you're tired of looking at printed pages if you're watching. You know, I digress for a moment. I brush my hair before every stream and I get my bangs looking just the cutest, you know? And then I get on camera and I'm like, I look like a hobo. So I'm trying to brush them and move them. And I always have this one chunk that no matter what, it does not behave. It just hangs there. I guess I have like I don't know, like, is there like a cow's lick there? I don't know. Anyway, back to the magazine. All right. So Grandma's Corner by Theo Essen. I think it's Essen, not Eason. This is always about this woman's memories of her grandmother, who must have been a pioneer. My calendar tells me that spring is here at last, but those last few 0 to sub-zero nights and early mornings before it came tested my patience. 2, they reminded me vividly of my childhood days on the farm, when on rare occasions it would fall to me to get out of bed early and start the fires in the kitchen range and the big black heater in the living room. When I crawl out of my bed now in an evenly heated room and step onto a floor covered with wall-to-wall shag carpet, I find it hard to believe how it was back then, but memory serves me well. The bare floors were like ice. The air in the rooms was frosty cold. It was nothing to see your breath turn into steam inside the house. With teeth chattering and fingers shaking, you lifted the stove lid and prayed that the big chunk of coal placed in the firebox the night before to bank the fire had held over. I'm assuming, like, I guess there might still be an ember in there. What a joy it was to find the ashy gray mound intact. Skill and past experience taught you how to break the heart fire gently so the glowing coals made a starter bed instead of crumbling and falling through the grate. Ah, okay. So it's just that little bit of ember that's left that could easily fall apart. A few dry chips of wood and a few egg-sized lumps of coal, and you were well on the way to a heat-producing fire. There was nothing in the world to compare with the soul-satisfying heat generated by a cast-iron stove as it slowly but relentlessly chases the chill from a room and warms your tense, cold body. As the owner of a cast-iron insert in my fireplace, I concur. Robin, you are very correct. I just need to make this into a little curl, right? I just need to, a little girl with a curl in the middle of her forehead. My mother used to always say that to me. All right. There was nothing in the world as a child, there's some typos here. I was an insatiable reader. Strange words became familiar and definitions clear from their repeated context in sentences. But I was well into my school years before I began to realize how badly I had mangled their silent pronunciations in my head through blind familiarity. One of my favorite old friends from the Bible was the two-edged sword. I completely overlooked the hyphen and pronounced it with a long O as one word. It was an awful embarrassment to me to find that it was actually a two-edged sword. I'm guessing maybe she called it a toe-edged sword, is what she's saying. Long O, toe. Another of my beloved but butchered words was hearthfire. I completely ignored the H, and for me it became heartfire. Okay, so we see where that came from. The meaning was reinforced each time I would break into an ashy lump of coal and discover its heart of fire. I still love my own version of hearthfire. Hearthfire. To me, it will always be a heartfire. I wish that every child could have the rich experience of being a keeper of the fire. I remember how I used to stare in fascination at the glowing red embers that make up the inner heart of a molten lump of coal. While I waited for the morning fires to take hold, I would think about the early cave dwellers who kept a constant vigil over their heart of fire so as not to lose it. And when my own fire would mount into a sturdy flame, I would experience, in my imagination, some of the pride of responsibility delegated to those ancient keepers of the flame. To me, there has always been something mysterious and wonderful about a glowing bed of embers. As a child, I felt some of the same magic in the morning sun when I first touched the top of my head, then ran like warm melted butter down my whole frame. When it first touched the top of my head and then ran like warm melted butter down my whole frame. I remember, too, how I was transformed with joy the first time I discovered for myself that the frost had gone from the ground and I saw the loam swelling and cracking from the heat inside the earth. The child me was instantly convinced there was a heart fire banked deep in the ground that had been holding warmth all winter under the crust of ice and snow. And that is very sweet. Of course. With the conviction of logic, I understood the meaning of spring. I cannot remember exactly how or when I learned to associate warmth with new life. It became part of my instinctive knowledge that warmth made the sap in the trees come to life and leaf. It was warmth that swelled seeds into bursting open. How excited I was when I found out that it was the warmth of a hen's heart-warmed feathers that hatched new chicks. I wish every child could experience the indescribable warmth and softness of a mother rabbit's or mother cat's furry breast nest. Aw. I suppose that most children make such meaningful discoveries for themselves. I feel sorry for ones who may have been denied that opportunity, and I wish that every child could have been so fortunate as to know my grandma. She taught me about God so gently and unobtrusively that I can never remember having to search for him, and each new encounter with nature only served to kindle in me a heart fire of faith that has warmed and blessed my years. Well, that was really lovely. I thought that was nice for spring. I expected her to bring it around to quilts, which she usually does, I feel like, but she didn't in that one. So, I hope you enjoyed that issue of April 1975, Quilters Newsletter Magazine. Exactly 50 years ago. I still, when I say that, I'm just like, 50 years ago, and I was alive then. All right. Are we ready? From Hoopskirts to Nudity by Carrie A. Hall, 1938. Now, as you know, last week we finished up the 20s, so 1916 to 1926. And that was the post-war sexless period, where women dared to show their ankles, their horrible, horrible ankles, and quite possibly their malformed legs, because they wore skirts that were just too short for Carrie Hall. Now we are moving on to chapter 8, and chapter 8 is called 20th Century Nudity. Now, I will loudly say to the AI and or humans that censor things here on Twitch, this is not anything offensive or inappropriate. This is just fine for children. Carrie Hall is writing to us from 1938, 1936, I think is when she actually wrote the book, published in 38. And to her, showing your elbows and your knees is tantamount to walking out naked. So, as a reminder, we are reading For Hoopskirts to Nudity by Carrie Hall, 1938. Chapter 8, 20th Century Nudity, 1926 to 1936. About 100 years ago, Thomas Carlyle wrote a half-serious, half-comic commentary on the origin and influence of clothes under the title of Sartor Resartus, the Tailor Patched. It was in reality a criticism on the spirit of the age and showed an insight into the manifold wants and tendencies of human nature, especially as applied to that naked animal, man, and his desire to be clothed. He said, man's earthly interests are all hooked and buttoned together and held up by clothes. Society is founded upon cloth and sails through infinitude on cloth as on a Faust's mantle. Concerning the meaning of color in clothes, he said, from the soberest drab to the high-flaming scarlet, spiritual idiosyncrasies unfold themselves in choice of color. If the cut of a garment betokens intellect and talent, so does color betoken temper and heart. Well, that's very poetic. Fashion is one of Earth's greatest autocrats. Is it? We think about the laws that said you couldn't wear certain kinds of clothes. So I don't know about fashion being an autocrat, but okay. Her inevitable appeal is to elemental desires, appetites, vanities, and self-interest. Man's aesthetic desire for satisfaction and the resulting interest he takes in his own personal appearance impel him to wear such clothes as he honestly believes will achieve the best results. Fashion succeeds in gaining his attention by her appeal to his love of novelty and originality, because the desire of man for a new sensation is fundamental. But fashion is elusive, and not many modes disappear because men condemn them, nor continue because they approve. Dame Fashion follows a devious course, and her dictates sometimes result from the most unusual circumstances. Yet her seasonal pageants remain popular. Along with all the yesterdays that have gone, fashion has decreed the passing of the bombazines, flannel petticoats, and all kindred garments that made life a burden for our great-grandmothers, and this includes what was known as Sunday best. People still do Sunday best. Some people. I know some of the churches that my mother and my grandparents have gone to, especially in the rural areas, they do wear jeans to church. But I feel like most people at least put their nice jeans on for church, right? You still have your Sunday best. This Sunday best was the outgrowth of that stern sense of duty that made our Puritan foremothers suppress weekday adornment. George Eliot, Mill on the Floss, gives a very vivid picture of the reverence the New England middle-class woman had for her best dress. But in this day and age, we like to look as nearly our best as we can at all times, so our best dress is not one to hang away in a closet, but the best sort of dress for the occasions of everyday life. The 20th century prototype of the New England woman's Sunday best is to be found in the weekend clothes of the busy businesswoman who spends a weekend at a gay house party or at a country club playing golf. Okay. The modern home or apartment has no attic in which to store trunks filled with the tarnished finery of other days. Well, speak for yourself. We have attics. Come on, Carrie Hall. Romance and sentiment may mingle with the stiff and musty silks that could stand alone, but the modern woman is free to take every occasion as a matter of course and wear her best dress. So these are some dresses from 1928. And it says strutting peacocks and dripping draperies. So she obviously does not approve of these dresses. But you can see how that like boyish figure of the 20s is starting to give way to this sort of different look of the 30s. I still think the 30s used a very slender sort of like style. But 1928, I mean, you're pushing into this period where, I guess the Depression has an impact, of course, but also things they're starting to get closer to like the modern age as we remember it. No field of human activity. Well, there goes my keyboard. No field of human activity so reflects the changing social, political, and industrial times as does the world of fashion. Although the influence of Paris is still felt, she does not dominate the modes as she did previous to the beginning of the 20th century. Many determining forces are at work trying to depose individual dress from its high estate among women of intelligence and culture. The greatest of these are the commercialization of ready-to-wear clothes and the enormous amount of capital represented in the machinery used for their production and distribution. And I think this forewarns our current problem, which is fast fashion. Many are the temptations the modern woman must overcome if she is to be well dressed, for she is confronted with cheap imitations on every side. It takes no small amount of courage to select what is good of its kind, though plain, rather than that which is showy but of no lasting value. Oh boy, Carrie Hall, talk to us about Shane and Forever 21 and oh gosh, I can't think of H&M. Those are Old Navy. Those are all fast fashion places. Some of that much talked of leisure time, which is the aftermath of the Depression. She's writing from 1936 to 1938. I mean, the aftermath of the Depression. I mean, that's like us talking about the aftermath of COVID. I mean, we're really just getting to the point where it's not a thing as much. So this is interesting that she's saying the aftermath of the Depression. The aftermath of the Depression might be spent in training the mind to comprehend real beauty, because such culture will help in the selection of clothes that will give that indefinable look of elegance and charm, without which no woman looks well dressed. A sure knowledge of the difference between the true and the false will help in overcoming the temptation of some popular new fashion of spurious charm. Spurious charm. For in all exaggeration there is danger, while modest restraint and swift intuition as to individual suitability means a victory in subtle charm which the vulgar can never achieve. So this is the bouffant and straight line dresses of 1929, and I think these are just truly lovely. This is why I enjoy this period, although these types of clothes are not flattering on me because I don't have the right body shape to pull these off. I still think they're really lovely. The tendencies of human nature are to be alike, not different, to have similar tastes, and to respond in the same way to the same impulses. Hence, the imitation in fashion, which in the past was the result of following the leadership of the much advertised 400. I don't know what that means. She's got 400 and... Now, birth and inheritance have little to do with fashions, which, although highly commercialized, must have the quality of utility. So I'm wondering, let's see. Hence the imitation fashion, which in the past was the result of following the leadership of the much advertised 400. I don't know. Is this a European thing? Is this a royalty thing? I don't know.
see. Now, birth and inheritance have little to do with fashion, which, although highly commercialized, must have the quality of utility. With increasing leisure in which to plan, freedom from the dominating restraint of custom, and with intelligence and an appreciation of the social significance of events and affairs of the world, there will naturally be an increased interest in everything pertaining to fashion. I think that's absolutely true. But there will be this difference. Leisure for studying one's needs with special attention to the varying moods of fashion will intensify the importance of being well dressed. Well, come and see my wardrobe, Carrie Hall. I put very little importance on being well dressed these days. I try to show up to events not looking like a hobo, but I mean, you guys see what you get on a stream with me. People who have few interests in life are much more likely to concentrate their interest on dress. Well, that's rude. If you have nothing better going on, you're probably going to be all crazy about your fashion. Oh my gosh. Because of the lack of outside interest, they are more likely to grow tired of their clothes and demand new fashions, and are disappointed if those fashions are not sufficiently striking to make up to them for the lack of other interests. Still, that's terrible. That is so judgmental. Like, get a hobby, otherwise you're going to be like too worried about what you're wearing. May the day come when education and art will be extended to all ranks, when a knowledge of the beautiful will be added to the useful, when good taste, based on real knowledge and common sense, will dictate our fashions as well as other things. An analysis of the efforts to standardize women's clothes shows that it is all a matter of commercialization, so that manufacturers may sell their product, not as garments that have been designed for a personality to enhance charm and individuality, but designed to sell in mass quantities. And there is every indication that these commercialized, ready-to-wear clothes are here to stay unless the cult for nudity assumes sufficient momentum to induce women to give up their last wisp of chiffon and their socks and sandals, which are about all that now remain between them and the cold, cold world. So these women of 1936 are trolloping about in chiffon and socks and sandals, and they're otherwise like just nude to the world. Oh my goodness. However, no matter what condition of things may develop in the future, the average woman of today must accept ready-to-wear clothes as a necessary evil. But some of the evil may be overcome if they are treated as raw material, and the prospective wearer, with the assistance of a skillful dressmaker, should consider them as a simple arithmetical an arithmetic problem. Made me get a scratch in my throat. A simple arithmetic problem, and by the subtraction of all undesirable parts and the addition of such individual touches as would remove the stamp of mass production, give them an appearance of distinction. So she's basically telling them, go buy these horrible ready-to-wear things and make them your own, which people still do today. Then they might become a joy to the wearer and present an artistic appearance to the beholder. The very fortunate woman who may have individually designed gowns is much to be envied, for what is more to be desired than the American woman of good taste, than fine, distinctive clothes, created for her particular personality, and possessing none of the glaring features of sameness recognized in ready-to-wear models. Lack of beauty in dress is the unpardonable sin. Discomfort and indecency might be forgiven if they made for beauty. Dresses as they are now fashioned may be, and often are, beautiful in themselves, with charm and coloring and daintiness in their draping. But draping and color in the loveliest of creations are of no avail if the last thing considered is the woman who is to wear it. She's getting ready to offend somebody. Her lines, her curves, her proportions must be carefully considered so long as she is expected to make a wholesale display of them. The fashionable wasp waist of the day before yesterday, or any of the strange protuberances that have had their vogue, are no more absurd than the result of trying to fit the full-blown type of American woman into a 14-year size ready-to-wear dress. So I think what she's meaning is a ready-to-made dress for a teenager. So like a 14-year-old, I think is what she means. Which she insists is the size I always wear. Thus, commercialized fashions may become another tyranny worse than those that have gone before. Now, one thing that she's leaving out here, and it's one of those things that I often wonder if women who are kind of writing from this perspective, kind of railing against like all the stuff, Quilt just says, this is a woman whose daughters were hiking their skirts when they were out of the house. Of course. She made them go to school in ankle-length skirts, and they just rolled them up to make mini skirts. But I think that, when they talk about, like, she's talking about the protuberances and all that. She's talking about, like, that weird pigeon breast thing that, where you kind of get a uniboob, that corset that was like the Gibson Girl era, and it's kind of like pushes your chest out, but it's not attractive. And then there's, where, they were kind of, sort of oddball corsets that sort of made your stomach pooch out, and because you had big skirts, it didn't matter. And then the butt padding and the bustles and all that stuff. But I think what she's failing to mention here, and again, it's something I often wonder, like, did they realize, did they know, is that like these wasp waists and some of these fashions, women padded their bodies to get these things to work. At least women of, women who are getting couture clothing, having clothes made for them, there would be padding introduced into parts of the clothing or the underwear, the undergarments, to get it to make them the shape they wanted to be. This is something that was happening in the 1900s. So, I think that there's kind of, the 20th century has really skewed an understanding of clothing of the 19th century and before. So, your beautiful stepsister used to leave the house with one length, hem her skirt high before school started, and then let it out before going home. That is an industrious woman. Kudos to her, Druid. Yeah, I went to public school, no uniforms, but I did have friends that went to the religious schools. And definitely there was a lot of rolling of hems or rolling of waistbands and, scotch taping and stapling hems and whatnot. And I can't think of anybody who was talented and industrious enough to actually sew their hem, but letting it out. I mean, that's hardcore. I love that. Okay. These two forces, fashion and commercialism, will struggle for preeminence. And whatever the outcome, the world is absolutely sure to go on craving the same sensations in fashion and meekly obeying fashion's ever-changing dictates, no matter whence they emanate. She became a first grade teacher and left her career to make draperies. Yes, a true sewist. I bet I would like her very much. The right to be in fashion is no longer a contested point among the classes. Only price can make any mode prohibitive today. And although women of all classes spend more money on dress than formerly, the working and middle class woman cannot go beyond a certain limit. She must follow the fashion in less gorgeous apparel, but follow it she will. Nor is there any likelihood that expensive models copied in cheap fabrics will lessen the variety and comedy of fashion's expression. For it is neither new nor strange to find the trade bent on outdoing the socially prominent in dress. And yeah, I mean, we've always done this. I mean, that's really just the way that fashion happens. I mean, and I know I've mentioned this before, probably not only once in this book, but multiple times. If you've watched The Devil Wears Prada, and you know that scene where, why am I drawing a blank? I can't find my words today. Anyway, Miranda Priestley is the character. She's yelling at the young intern, and she's saying basically, like, you think you chose that sweater, that ugly blue sweater, but you did not. That color of blue was chosen for you. You know, in a room very much like this with all of these fashion design people and fashion industry people, and they decided that was the color of the year, and so did it in these outfits, and so did it on this runway, and then it trickles down to that bargain basement bin at the Fashion Bug where you bought that ugly blue sweater. So, you know, I mean, that's really what this is about ultimately, when, you know, fashion dictating what happens. I don't know. Has that changed any? I don't know, because I don't follow modern fashion so much. You know, I mean, certainly I think that designers still have a lot of influence to a certain degree, certainly with famous people, Hollywood, all that kind of thing. But, you know, and a lot of the influencers, I see stuff on TikTok and Instagram where people are, you know, showing off designer things or copying designer things. I don't know. I'm just not that sophisticated, I guess. To the connoisseur, the difference between the genuine article and a cheap imitation is vastly important, but to the average woman it is not. And so long as the effect is striking and similar to that of the better class dress, she is satisfied and happy. Is she? Woman is, after all, mostly the result of her environment, and will certainly express in her clothing, unless forced to do otherwise, precisely what she is. One of the many inconsistencies of commercialized fashions is the hurry and scramble to satisfy women's desire for the newest and latest things. The seasons are fairly pushed out of place. Aha, they had this problem in the 1930s. It's gotten worse. Spring fashions are offered for inspection when the snows of January are thick upon the hills and fur coats are displayed in August. Could anything be more ridiculous? It is both illogical and inconsistent to wear a spring hat in February unless one is spending that time in Florida or similar summer climate. But Carrie Hall, the merchandising of the capitalist ready-to-wear makers is they want to start tickling your fancy for your spring collection in the winter, so you'll buy it planning your spring wardrobe and your fall and winter wardrobe in the summer. I mean, come on, Carrie Hall. You have to know what's going on. And obviously it was going on in the 30s. It's nothing new. The same is applicable to the wearing of felt hats in August unless one is summering in the mountains. These practices create business at the expense of every canon of good taste and make the women who follow them objects of well-deserved ridicule. Well, they should be ridiculed if they go buy a bikini in the December or in January and start wearing it before it's... I mean, come on. Really? Not all of this may be laid to fashion's vagaries, for love of the almighty dollar, added to modern advertising methods, is responsible for much that is undesirable in the mad rush of the manufacturer to offer the latest freak garment before his competitor does. God. She is just not very... I mean, has she mentioned any clothing that is lovely or... I mean, other than skirts that only show the tips of your shoes, she obviously likes. And to make the situation even more absurd, these novelties, which are advertised and displayed, stay in favor only until something equally ludicrous takes their place. Well, yes. But yeah, you guys can you think of any point in here where she has said that a particular fashion is nice? She complained about the bustles. She complained about the weird corseted shapes. She had, the wasp waist is unhygienic. The shortening of skirts is scandalous. I think think Carrie Hall would be perfectly happy in a burqa. That's all I'm saying, y'all. She doesn't seem to be pleased by anything. Oh, this is interesting. This next, someone has aptly said, the scrap heaps of fashion, if joined together, would make the mightiest mountain chain on earth. Ooh. She's being jokey here, but there is that giant fashion trash desert down in South America. I'm trying to remember what country it's in. Chile or Peru? Maybe. It's a deserty part of South America. I'm so bad with geography, you guys. It's not that I don't care. It's just that I can never remember these things. But in any event, it is a place where fashion has been dumping stuff for probably decades. And you literally can see this piles of textile waste from space. So, she's joking. But at this point in time, she's predicted something that's real. Chile. Okay, it's in Chile. Okay. Yeah. A Karen of a different time. Yeah. Carrie might be short for Karen. We don't know. I don't think it is. But yeah, it's in Chile. And, I actually read an article recently, where they have the people, they're like kind of the... like dumpster divers essentially, but they're Atacama Desert. Yeah. They go through and they're pulling stuff like, this is stuff that's perfectly fine. And they were like, I saw an article, was a guy pulling jeans out, and I guess they wash the sand out of them, or whatever, and are selling them online. And I'm like, why not? To dump denim in the desert, to dump anything in the desert like that is terrible. But denim is highly sought after. Like, why would you just dump something like that? Because they're too lazy. They're too lazy to find a way of utilizing it. So they're just going to dump it someplace where, So for all of the problems that fast fashion causes, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And I'm not going to get into it, but you guys know. You only have to read the headlines to see these things. I guess because I have Google alerts and stuff for these things, I think my news feed probably comes up with a lot more about fast fashion and slow sewing and the things that I care about. But I don't think that even if you don't have those things on focus, in your news feeds and whatever, you still get articles about it. The how much water and pollution, comes out of making a single t-shirt, those kinds of things. Anyway, let's get back to Carrie Hall and her slander of fashion. Let's see. So, mountain chains of scrap heaps. But Folly in her latest aeroplane could easily fly over it. Okay. The besetting sin of ready-to-wear fashions is the avarice of those responsible for their changing moods and modes. The measure of a thing is not simply its concrete elements. Quality, for instance, has a character not to be estimated alone by size, shape, or substance. To any three dimensions of quality, one must add a fourth, the satisfaction of its possession. In Baghdad, in the olden times, there lived a famous oracle who invariably told the seeker of wisdom to... Why was it Baghdad? Told the seeker of wisdom to consider well the priceless ingredient in every article. In matters of wearing apparel, it would be well to heed this advice, for the priceless ingredient in every article is the honor, integrity, and sincerity of the maker. That's nice. The fastidious woman, to whom to look a gentlewoman is an asset, is demanding of life no more than her rightful heritage when she refuses to be dowdy or commonplace. I don't know, Carrie Hall. You don't like anything. I don't know how else you are not to be dowdy and commonplace. It seems like wearing an old sack is the only thing that meets your needs. For it is within the power of every woman, by virtue of her womanhood alone, to be attractive, if not beautiful. The woman who is frumpy in her dress fails to give the impression of intelligence, for there is a difference between wearing clothes and displaying them. And she talked about this early in the book. We're also not going to get through this chapter today. So let's find a good spot here. Okay. This is particularly applicable to the woman in business. An artist must know the principles of art in order to enjoy art or to make a success of it, and so must every businesswoman know the principles of dress to be successfully clothed. Dress has such tremendous possibilities, such far-reaching effects, such power for individual success, that no woman who values her position can afford not to understand the principles as well as the niceties of dress. The businesswoman, above all others, should wear nothing that attracts more attention than her personality, otherwise the value of her ego will be lost. Personality is what you create in the mind of the other person, plus the outward expression of that indefinable quality known as individuality. And when nourished with honest thoughts, high ideals, and lofty purposes, it becomes the ladder by which we reach the pinnacle of our aspirations. In clothing, its dwelling place, the body, with suitable and proper garments, beware of fashion when she thrills in a harmony of color and frills, and seek to catch the general air or spirit of the period, and incorporate it in specific detail into garments that will make a favorable impression upon those we contact in the business world. In that way, we gain not only self-respect, but the respect of our friends and associates. A really well-dressed businesswoman is never conspicuous nor uncomfortable, no matter where she may be. To be well-dressed does not necessarily mean that you must be extravagantly dressed. It does mean, though, that you must understand dress harmony, how to adapt prevailing fashions to harmonize with your personality and to conform to it. The well-dressed businesswoman is her own press agent. You looked her up, and she totally looks like the kind of hard-lipped woman that I love to avoid. Well, we gotta take a little break to look at her. I know what she looks like. She's not a smiler. So let's see. Oops. Carry a haul. Let's see. This is her Quilters Hall of Fame. Let me move over here. So this is a younger picture of her, obviously. You can't really crap on her for that picture because, you had to stay still for the the earlier pictures. But where is the other? Here she is. Yep. So this is a portrait from the Kansas State Historical Society. She looks like she's having none of it. Oh my gosh, too funny. Oh, her middle name was Alma. I knew that her middle initial was A. Yeah. This is the picture I always think of when I picture her. Let's see. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, too funny. Poor Carrie Hall. If she didn't hate every type of fashion, we might like her better. A prominent woman writer of 1911 said, "More and more, the woman of today realizes that her appearance is her chief recommendation. The young person who appears neat and trim gives the impression of being apt and clever with no artful attempt to display the person. When the time comes, if it must, that she is an essential factor in business life, there will be an evolution in taste concerning business dress, just as there has been, to some extent at least, in the dress for the home and society." Could this writer have lifted the veil of the future and glimpsed the businesswoman as she emerged after the World War? Remember, World War II has not happened yet, so we're still calling World War I the World War. And she has developed in the years since the war, and she could not have prophesied much more truly. Clothes became the outward expression of personality, of taste, of mental attitudes, and of character, revealing individuality. Clothes have played an important part in helping to transform the businesswoman from an object of pity. Why are we pitying businesswomen? To an object of envy. A genius may be able to make an impression in run-down heels and an unbecoming hat, but the average businesswoman needs the stimulating influence of good clothes and good grooming. That is, if she wants to succeed. I kind of doubt a woman in run-down heels and an unbecoming hat would have been able to do a damn thing in 1930, whatever. I don't think women have ever been able to look like slobs. And I mean, imagine a woman wearing Zuckerberg's hoodie, no woman would have gotten away with that. Druid, my face is invariably forming into a snarl in response to her picture, and one finger is twitching to flip up in gesture. Aw, poor Carrie Hall. Let's see, where did I leave off? The businesswoman, perhaps more than all others, should avoid the freaks and fads of the passing day. As she contacts the world of business and associates with men in everyday affairs, her costume should be as neat as a man's. In general, a neat figure, smartly turned out for work. She should feel that it is more important to show how to adjust her dress to the occasion than to keep adding clothes to her wardrobe. She cannot be too particular in regard to such things, for good dressing has far more to do with the way she puts on her clothes than the clothes she puts on. The correctly dressed businesswoman does exist. She may be found in every city, and wherever she is seen, she gives the impression of efficiency that her success warrants. There is nothing dowdy about her, for whatever she wears with distinction. The first impression is one of self-respect, and she deserves it. Indeed. She reminds me of a strict librarian that shushes you for turning a page too loudly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so, oh my gosh, here's one. We have both an illustration and a photograph. The halter neck evening dress, 1934 to 1935. Oh, check this out. Now this, I think, is very pretty. It's long. It's covering up your ugly legs, but oh my gosh, your back is out. And then this is the photograph. It's probably difficult for you guys to see. It's a terrible photograph anyway, but it's a lady wearing a halter dress. And I mean, honestly, I have a dress like that. I have a gown that I wore. It was for a formal Christmas party. I don't know, 2007, 2008. That looks exactly like this one. It comes up in kind of like a halter, sort of a ring, and then, like just a ring of fabric, and then the top comes down from there, and then just sort of, body skimming. Yeah. Okay, Carrie Hall. Printed chiffon dancing dress, 1935, and a hostess gown. These are lovely. I think these are so pretty. There's that one. It's the dancing gown, and then there's the hostess. I love this idea of like a big floofy kind of like house coat kind of thing. And then we have a knitted dress from 1935. I'm certain she doesn't approve of this, for you can see this woman's ankles and her shins. The whole thing is knitted. Scandalous. How dare they show their backs? Yes. They're asking for it. And then this final one. This is an evening gown and a street dress. 1935. And, you know, it's interesting. She's only showing things from like 1935 on. We don't see... Well, 1934 she's got in here. We don't see stuff from like 1929, 1930. I mean, 1928 we have. But yeah, 1929. Did I see anything? Okay, the bouffant and straight line dresses were 1929. But then we got nothing for the first few decades of the 30s. So, you know, I guess there really wasn't much going on in fashion right there, you know, after the stock market crash. So, I think I'm going to stop right there. I think that's a good stopping point. This chapter goes on and on for like another 20 pages, I think. Oh, you guys. At the end of this chapter, I will show you. It is impossible to tell what you're looking at here because this is such a terrible picture. This is the picture. I'm sure you're kind of like, what is this? A battlefield with dead bodies? Like, what is going on here? It's a picture of a nudist colony. There is a person lying down, face down, I guess sunbathing. There's a person over here lying face up. You can see their arms up. The person lying face down, it seems to me they've either done some... I think they have drawn underpants on that person, and I think it's a man. Why would she have included this picture? It is very hard to see, but you can see kind of in the tushy area here. You can kind of see some sort of buttock shape there, but then it's also like there's like a white, something white there. Like they've kind of drew it. I'm not sure what's going on there. It looks like some photo manipulation, but it's so poorly printed. It's so hard to tell. And up here at the very top, it seems, I don't know, this looks like a woman, like an old-fashioned woman in a dress, like looking on. So I'm kind of like, oh, is that you, Carrie Hall, sitting there just looking at all these naked people going like, oh, clutching my pearls. Oh, my word. Well, we will get to that next time. She was horrified. Well, I can't tell. I don't know. She has something to say about everything, and she's included of a very odd picture of a nudist camp. So, yes, we'll find out more next time. All right, guys. So, as a reminder, first of all, Jill and I are starting to read Portable Patchwork tomorrow. She assigned last Tuesday the intro and chapter 1. I still need to get my reading done. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. I will be gone from Wednesday this week until May. Let me look at the calendar so you guys know. And I'll be putting on the vacation thing as soon as we get off here. So I will be gone from May 23rd, and I will return May 5th. So, yes. Oh, Drew, and I'm so glad you could be here today. I hope everything turns out okay. And everybody else, I will miss you. I will definitely be taking pictures. I have been threatened if I don't get good pictures. because I've been terrible about taking like selfies and group photos and photos of friends and things like that. So I'm going to try to do better. So I will see you, if not tomorrow, I will see you on May 5th. I will be back. So have a wonderful 2 weeks. I hope you have relaxation, lots of stitching, lots of sunshine, and lovely weather. That's what I will wish for everybody. And cross your fingers that I get the same. So take care, you guys. I love you bunches. I couldn't be here without you. I wouldn't want to be here without you. So I will talk to you soon. Mwah, mwah. Thank you, Robin. Bye, guys.